Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and to some more turkey patterning, and today we've got a really interesting test to run. I'm definitely excited to see how this particular type of shell can actually perform when it comes to the turkey world, because it may very well be pretty surprisingly capable, but there's also the chance that it could go either way. We could be rather disappointed with the results as well. We're just going to have to test it and see what happens. Several of you guys have wanted to see a test like this, and I've wanted to try it as well, so we're going to find out what happens one way or the other. But first up, for the shells that I've got to run today, I brought out some of these. These are some Federal Prairie Storm lead 28 gauge loads. They are a 28 gauge 2 3/4 inch 13/16 ounce payload of lead 6s at about 1300 feet per second. I've had several requests to test lead in these sub gauges like 28 and 410 to see just how capable they might actually be in the turkey world and seeing how far we can push them. And these ones have been specifically requested several times. We've got a decent opportunity here. These ones do indeed have the flight control wad as well, but it is the flex wad, which I'm not a huge fan of, as well as we have copper plated shot on top of Federal's FS lead, which I'm not a huge fan of either. They're round pellets, but they kind of have a bumped out ring around them. They kind of look like a Saturn planet or something. Typically I've found them to fly a little weird and just not be all that great. They're designed for better wound channels. But either way, we'll see what these are capable of, because in theory, we should potentially be able to push these out to a little farther range while still holding a tight enough pattern. As for the setup we're running, I brought out my Tristar Viper 28 gauge. It's got a 28-inch barrel on it, and for our choke, we're going to start with the Carlson's Turkey 520. It's a little bit more open of a constriction for a 28 gauge turkey choke, and it doesn't have any porting or steps or straight rifling or anything like that in there, just a smooth 520 constriction, which may help us out and get us a starting point to work off of with these. So for our test today, the plan is to run a shot at 20, 30, and 40 yards, and we'll see just how far we can push lead in a 28 gauge, at least with these shells and choke. That's how we're going to do it, as long as we don't see some just egregiously terrible results start to show up at 30 yards. And of course, we've got the chrono to be getting our velocities as well. So interesting test. How good can lead actually perform when it comes to these sub gauges like 28? We're going to get us a starting point today. So let's get you guys a few of these targets. We'll start taking some shots, and we'll see just how capable they might actually be, and if they surprise us or are a pretty predictable little bit of a letdown. So let's see what we can actually get. All right, so quick run through for the velocities. We had a box claim of 1300, and we were seeing right about that claim. We had 1303, 1351, and 1317. So averaging a little bit over that 1300 claim. It's a lead 6 pellet. That's plenty enough velocity out to 40 yards to do the job. But how good did our pattern actually hold up at those longer ranges? Let's go check it out and see what we actually did get from a lead 28 gauge load. All right, well, here are the 3 targets all side by side. Of course, we will do close-ups, and I will get you guys a much better view of them, all 3 side by side, here in a little bit. But we see some actually pretty impressive results, all things considered. And I think it's probably a little more capable than what a lot of people would initially think. We've got ourselves 3 dead turkeys here, but I think just judging initially here, 30, maybe 35 yards and in is where a combo like this would really shine. So first up, we'll start over here with our 20-yard pattern, and yeah, that is a nasty turkey performer all day long. Every pellet except for 4 are within that turkey paper. We've got 2 over there on the left and 2 over here on the right. Everything else is right there. So, I mean, sure, you may not have a massive pellet count there to work with, but that's going to be a dead turkey every single time. A lead 6 pellet at 1300 is still a lead 6 at 1300, regardless of what gauge of shotgun shell that it comes from. If you got a pattern like that out of a 12 gauge, if you got one out of a 28 gauge, the turkey is not going to know the difference, because physics are still physics. So that right there is nasty. I don't think any of us would have a problem running that at 20 yards for a turkey, but it's only 20 yards. You can kill a turkey with just about everything reasonably well at 20 yards, but we've got a good start for sure. Now moving over here to 30 yards, we still most definitely do have a dead turkey. There are multiple of them through the head and neck area right there, as well as a few more down in the lower spine, and there's nowhere left or right he can move to and get through that pattern. We definitely started to pick up a few more pellets around the edges, maybe a little bit of a string up there to the top right, but still, that is a perfectly capable 30-yard turkey pattern. You can really start to see how we don't have a ton of pellet count to work with though. That's no surprise. That's just the way it is with lead in a sub gauge like this. Either way though, perfectly viable 30-yard turkey combination. I would definitely hunt it for sure. There's not going to be a bird that can make it through that kind of pattern. And considering we still have everything condensed down except for a few extreme flyers around the edges, this pattern is holding up pretty well all things considered. This is 30 yards and you could still absolutely turkey hunt with it just fine. And finally, moving over to 40 yards, we do indeed still have a dead bird. There are 2 of them in the brain and another 1 or 2 down the middle of the spine. So that is a dead bird, but you can really see that probably not much farther past 30 yards is where we really start opening our pattern up. So is it turkey capable to 40 yards? Technically, yes, it would be. Would I want to try to push it to 40? Probably not, ideally. I'm saying 30 yards and in, maybe 35 yards if the situation is right, but for what it is, it's still not bad out to 40 yards. That 40-yard pattern right there would make a perfectly adequate wing shooting pattern. And these are a more, upland pheasant oriented type of shell. So really, not too bad here, all things considered, especially at 30 yards and in. So let's pull these turkey targets down, draw some circles, count some pellets, and really see how these actually performed. All right, so now I've pulled all of our turkey targets down, got those out of the way, finished drawing all of our circles and counting pellets, and now we can really see how good this combo actually performed. And it is surprisingly nice for sure. Once again, we'll start over here at 20 yards, and yeah, you can see that is a nice tight pattern. It's got the hot core, but pretty much the entire thing is a core. I mean, that's pretty well a straight up basketball at 20 yards. Inside of our 10-inch circle, we have 133 pellets. Within the 20-inch ring, we pick up an additional 28 pellets, and we have 0 outside of that 20-inch ring at all. And even the ones that are in the 20-inch ring are still pretty nice and condensed with the rest of them. So I don't think there's any question that 28 gauge lead Prairie Storm load is absolutely turkey capable at 20 yards, no question about it. So very nice starting point at closer ranges for sure. And now here we are over at 30 yards, and still we absolutely do have a turkey capable performance. Within our 10-inch ring, we have 71 pellets compared to 133 at 20 yards. So we did lose some, but that's no surprise. That's still a plenty good enough core area. And outside of that, within our 20-inch ring, we now have 78 total pellets within that as well. And still, we're keeping that nice even spread. That is absolutely going to take birds at 30 yards, no doubt about it. But you can see we are indeed starting to pick up a few outside of our 20-inch ring now. Still no major flyers necessarily, but that is still a very nice, very capable pattern, all things considered. These are a wing shooting shell, and for me, that pattern's a little bit tight for 30 yards. So it is absolutely down there in the turkey performing kind of category for me. I wouldn't hesitate to run it to 30, but anywhere past 30, that's where we're really going to start to see our lack of pellet count come into play here. Because here is our 40-yard pattern, and still we have a good enough core area to do the job, but I'm saying yet again, 40 is pushing the limits here. We have 36 within our 10-inch circle and an additional 66 within the 20, and we definitely started to fill in the rest of our paper around our 20-inch ring here as well. So much more broad pattern, still keeps it a pretty even spread, don't get me wrong. That is a good wing shooting pattern there at 40 yards, but it's probably on the edge for turkeys. Yes, it would do the job, but I don't know that I would really want to try and take 40-yard shots, ideally. I'm saying 30, 35 yards or so and in, that's where our money zone is going to be with these. So now I'll pop up all 3 patterns side by side with pictures here on the screen for you guys. We'll start off with the turkey targets up so you can see them all directly next to each other. You can definitely see 30 yards, we're still hammering that turkey, no doubt about it. But anywhere past there closer to 40, definitely starts to push the limits a little bit. And that trend continues now with all of our circled patterns. Still 30 yards, maybe 35 yards. That's going to be the winning zone. Anywhere 35 and in, the turkey is going to be dead right then and there, no doubt about it. So overall here today, looking at this spread from 20 to 40 yards, it did rather impressively well. Obviously at 20 yards over there, I expected it to be a little bit tighter than 40, but really even the 40 yards having a sub gauge that is technically turkey capable with a lead pellet, that's pretty impressive all things considered. It may not be ideal out at 40 yards, and it's obviously nowhere near as good as what a 12 gauge would do, but we've seen 20 gauge turkey patterns with lead shells that are way worse than that 40-yard result. So really, we can't complain. The 28 gauge just patterns well. From my experience and from plenty of other people's, it's hard to argue with what a 28 gauge can do. Obviously, we don't have the pellet count here like we would in a TSS shell, but it's still a lead 6 at 1300 feet per second. It is plenty capable for taking turkeys. I figured starting with the 520 Carlson's choke that we did might be a decent safe bet, and I think we got what I was looking for here. Maybe now we can run them through a little tighter choke and see what happens. These do have a flight control flex wad in them with the FS shot that has that kind of Saturn ring around them, which I don't love either. So I don't know how well a tighter choke would work out for us. Might start ruining the patterns that we see here, but it may be worth a shot just to see maybe if we can condense that 40-yard spread down a little bit more. Either way though, I don't think we can complain one bit about that performance. I wouldn't hesitate to run it all day long. It's definitely going to be cheaper than what a TSS shell can be, and for the vast majority of shots that are already at 25 to 30 yards, that would do the job perfectly fine. So nice results today for sure. And here is one of those flight control flex wads from those shells. The flex wads have the little slice up the side instead of the square flaps. Not really a huge fan of these most of the time, but these seem to do just fine for us today, that's for sure. Overall though, looks pretty typical. Might have a little bit of snagging stuff up here at the front edge of it, but it's nothing major that really would have taken much effect on our patterns. Overall, everything looks very much normal and as I would expect here. Alright y'all, well, what did you think about this performance here today? Definitely pretty capable all things considered. Obviously 20 yards out to 30 yards or so, that's going to take the bird every single time. If you do your part and center that shot up right on the head or neck area, it's going to work. Now obviously 20 yards isn't really too tall of an ask for most shells. At 20 yards and in, you can pretty much shoot a turkey with an 18.5-inch cylinder bore defense shotgun loaded with number 8 trap loads. It would technically work. It definitely wouldn't be my choice for sure, but that's not to say that it couldn't physically be capable of doing it. Obviously though, these are nice patterns. Within 30 yards especially, I wouldn't have any problem running that out to 30 yards. Even 40 yards, most likely, you would have a dead bird there. You've got a lead 6 pellet carrying plenty enough velocity to do the job. If you put a couple of them in that head or neck, in that vital zone, the turkey is gonna be down right then and there. But I'm thinking 30, maybe 35 yards and in is the sweet spot here. And that distance is where most turkeys are shot at, averaging about 30 yards or so. So ultimately, there's not a whole lot to complain about here. This is lead in a 28 gauge. Sure seems like the little 28 can put up a fight just the same as any other sub gauge with lead. We've tested plenty of lead shells in 20 gauge that can't give us this type of spread. So really, it's rather impressive for what it is. You don't have a massive pellet count to work with, but the pellets you do have are right where you want them to be at least out to 30 yards or so. So ultimately, I'm liking what I'm seeing. Maybe we'll run a couple other lead 28 gauge loads and see what they can do with this same sort of test. Maybe we'll run these shells through a couple different chokes and see what they're capable of. Either way though, seems like if you've got a 28 gauge and don't want to spend TSS money, there's a decent chance that if you're fine taking 30 to 35 yard shots and in, that you could be just fine with a combo like this with these shells. So leave all your thoughts down below. Is that about what you expected to see? Were you a little surprised one way or the other? Have you tested a 28 gauge with lead shells for turkeys? And if so, what kind of results have you seen? Is this a combo you would actually run? Or if you're running a sub gauge, would you still just want to run TSS? Or would you be perfectly fine using that shell to 30, maybe 35 yards or so and calling it a day? And of course, what other tests do you want to see us do with either these shells through different chokes or other 28 gauge lead shells? I've got Got a few other ones I want to try with similar tests like this, but let me know what you guys want to see down in the comments. But with that being said, I've got some more testing to get done for you guys, so I'm going to get back to it. As always, we have the channel Instagram as well as the mailbox where you can send stuff if you'd like. All that information will be in the description if you're interested in it, but I'm going to get back to it, so I'll see y'all in the next one.